Hey everyone, thank you so much for tuning in to Tried and Tested podcast today. I am your host Tracey, and Tried and Tested is a relationship and dating podcast where we talk about all things that we go through in our courting stage, getting to know people, spending money, anything about love and relationships, marriages, divorce. We talk about everything from every end of the spectrum. And today we have a very special guest, my dear friend Cameron. Say hey, Cameron.
Hey, guys. Hey, guys. What's
up? So thank you so much for joining us today as a repeat guest. If you guys haven't heard him already, he's in some of the episodes from season 1, so definitely check it out. And so today our topic we're going to discuss is going to be bad habits and addictions that people have in relationships. Some of you may have experienced this where you're dating somebody and they habitually do something that is just like so absurd and so, horrible, and it destroys the. Our topic is for today. So, Cameron, first of all, what is your definition of an addiction?
I think addiction is something where it is something that you kind of can't live without, something that you must do, that you have to do every day, that you can't control the impulse to do it, and it has a negative impact on your life and your relationships.
Okay, all right. So that makes sense. All right. So when it comes to relationships, what is too much to blame on something? Like, so basically, let's say you are someone who likes to drink alcohol a lot, right? At what point is it like, okay, it's too much, like you keep blaming it on this, and at what point do you identify it as an addiction versus something that the person does for fun?
I think, like I said, when it starts to have a negative impact. So one way, like, when you're speaking about it, drinking particularly, it could be the way you treat me. Like, so when you're under the influence and you act a certain way, you become, whether it's you're belligerent towards me or rude, or you're just, maybe if we're out in public, you become a sloppy drunk and now you know how to take care of you. It's embarrassing. Like, that's one way. But also, too, like, drinking is expensive. So, like, if you're going out all the time, you blowing the mutual funds that we're working, whatever financial goals we have that we're working towards, and you're consistently using that money to go buy alcohol. I think that, like, we need to kind of talk about that because, if I'm asking you, if we agree that you're going to cut back so we can save a couple coin here and there, and, like, you just can't do it, to me, that's an addiction. And
okay,
it's beyond that.
Okay, so as far as, so it's only an addiction if they're spending too much money. What if they have the money to spend? Is it still considered an addiction
it's not only if it's like, that's one way. Like, if they're spending too much money on it, and, like, we got some financial goals that we go working towards, and it's hindering that or impeding that. But also, too, like I said, if it's you treating me wrong, like, when you get drunk, you get belligerent or you get rude and you say nasty things and you treat me, a way that I would deem out of character from our normal relationship, our normal interaction. Or if we're out, like, you like to drink when we're out and you're a sloppy drunk, and I'm consistently after, like, you're getting crazy, and it's a little embarrassing when we go out in public because you sloppy and you drunk. Like, that's another way that it could be. You could start to identify, like, oh, this might be a problem.
Okay. So when it comes to something like an addiction of any sort, do you feel like those behaviors are learned, or it's something that maybe you grew up knowing? Like, it's something that it can just be ingrained in you, like you think it's normal, or do you think it's something that
it can be a learned behavior, but it also can be something like maybe you just tried something and you like it and you just picked up on it. Like, I don't know where it can come from. I know, me personally, I have an addictive personality. So I try to steer clear of things that I may find that I fall into a habit of, maybe doing something habitually. So, but maybe I haven't been exposed to that before. Now that I'm exposed to it, I realize I like it a lot. So now I think, like, oh, I want to consistently do it. Or it could just be something that you normalize. Like I said, you talk about alcohol. If alcoholism is something that you've seen on a regular basis, and, your pops came home every day, he had a 6-pack of beer, and you thought nothing of it, and it could be a combination of the two or live independently.
Okay, now that definitely makes a lot of sense. So have you ever blamed anything on a bad habit or an addiction of your own, like throughout the course of your life in relationships and things like that? Has that ever been something that you have done?
I don't know if it's about addiction per se, but I know I have used the phrase before, well, that's just how I am, or, this is this is how I'm used to doing things. I know I've used that phrase before. As far as an addiction capacity, I wouldn't say that I've had an addiction. I feel like I've developed some addictions over our relationships, not necessarily negatively impacting my relationship, but it's definitely things that I feel like I picked up that I would probably deem out of character or something that I'm not too proud of to say that a behavior that I learned that I pick up that, I sometimes have an impulse to kind of dive into.
Okay, no, that definitely makes sense. All right, so as far as addictions, do you think that they could ever be used in a positive connotation? Like, can you be addicted to something that's positive, you think?
Yeah, you can. I mean, I think you can be addicted to something that's positive, but like the word addiction has a negative connotation. So, I mean, I have an addicted personality. So, like when I start working out, I really like to work out. Like, so I like, oh, what's the next thing? What's the next thing? And I really want to get my partner involved in that with me. And they're not necessarily as excited about it as I get about it. So, like when I start doing something, and I get a rush of it because I like working out, it releases endorphins and stuff like that. So when I start getting into it, I get excited, and I'm like, I want to do this every day, blah, blah, blah. So
okay.
No, I guess it could be a positive.
Yeah, and I mean, I feel like that's something I definitely would want. I would love to exercise and feel like, ooh, like I want to keep doing this because I don't want to keep doing it. But so do you ever think that, like I know you mentioned something about through the course of your different relationships that you may have learned or, started some new things that may have become an addiction. Do you feel like you could ever blame that on your partner? Like, I started doing this because of you. Or do you think an addiction is a personal thing and you take responsibility for your own actions?
So like my theory evolved on that. So I have kind of put that mentality out there before, like, I started doing this because of you, but then I shifted my perspective over time, and as I matured that, I'm in control of everything that I do. So if I continue to blame a person for the actions that I'm doing, then you kind of have a level of resentment and stuff like that, and I have to be accountable to myself, and I have to know that like I'm making these decisions, so therefore I'm not going to be mad at the person that may have been a catalyst because I still made that decision. And so that allows me to have, I feel like, more functional, healthy relationships. Whether I'm in a relationship with that person currently or we moved on from that, I can still maintain a decent rapport. Like I don't have an ill will or any type of gripe against any of my exes, even if I felt I was wrong, because if I'm decide to stay in a relationship that I feel is not healthy for me, I still made that decision to stay in it. Like no one forced me to do it, and I've never felt like I have to stay because of X reasons. Like if I decided to stay, I've always owned it to say like, okay, this is me making this choice.
Okay, no, that definitely makes sense. All right, so now to kind of take it away from just you, have you ever dated somebody who had an addiction or a bad habit that it was just too much for you to deal with?
I have dated people who I would say, I don't know, you could be addicted to your friends. And you could be addicted to your friends in a positive way and a negative way. And I've been in a situation where I was addicted. I was in a relationship with a young lady who was easily influenced by, I would say, her circle. I feel like, and I can't say for sure if that's the case, but I feel like, she joined an organization and got new friends in that organization, and like they were, of course, they started to talk about their relationships, and they were feeding her different things. And this is at a time where, we weren't as, I moved away for a little while, like, so it was like we want to try this long distance thing, and I feel like her friends were like heavily influencing her, and I don't want to say, like, I don't know if it was an addiction, but like she was high off of that new, being a part of that new organization, having these new sisters that she has, and like she was definitely high off that in the moment. So I feel like, there was a lot of influence of that in that time frame. I mean, I think she grew out of that, but in that moment, I really felt that, it was impacting. It was the outside influence that was more so affecting our relationship negatively. I mean, don't hold me, like I wasn't no a saint in the situation. However, however, I think like the outside forces is what kind of had a lot of influence. But on the flip side too, I've been in situations where people use not being close to their friends as like, as a crutch. Like, you're like, oh, I don't have friends. I don't have my friends around me, so I'm not feeling myself. So I don't want to do this. So I don't want to do that. Like, I don't have that kind of energy. So I've seen it, where it was affecting my relationship negatively because the friends were a bad influence and didn't have a lot of positive things to say about me. But I also seen on the flip side where, like, if I'm not out with my friends enough, I don't feel like myself and I'm not as upbeat. So therefore now I'm kind of like in a slump. So definitely friends in different ways.
Okay. And that's interesting that you said that, because I feel like at the end of the day, even though those situations, they could maybe be addictions or bad habits, it leads to addiction kind of because it's a crutch. It's something that you need in order for you to kind of be, I guess, who you normally were. So when the first girl that you mentioned, like, I guess, like, she needed those friends, and so therefore maybe she wasn't thinking clearly. And then, of course, with the second situation, because you don't have those friends, you're still not thinking clearly. So that those are types of maybe like minor forms of addiction. But I'm talking about more so as well, like more severe forms. And I'm going to use myself for an example. I think, and the reason why I have even brought up alcoholism to begin with, I'm somebody who doesn't drink and never really did, never really cared for it. I just don't like it. But I've dated people who drink, right? And I think that some men don't see drinking liquor as a problem. And so for me, what I thought is that when people drink, they probably drink when they go out. So that may be like on a Friday night and a Saturday night, right? But it's also that you don't drink till you black out or you can't remember anything, right? But then you have people who drink every day of the week. They continuously drink, and then their speech is slurred. They sound crazy. They fall asleep. They can't barely walk. And so to me, that's an addiction. If you continuously do that all the time. Have you experienced it? Have you seen that before?
I haven't seen anything like that with alcohol. I mean, I've seen it with drugs. And not necessarily in my generation. I've seen it like, some of the older relationships, like, uncles, aunts, that type of thing. Yeah. I've seen it with drugs. I've seen my pops, my grandfather, he was an alcoholic, but he was a functioning alcoholic. So, so even though he drank every day and he drank a lot, and most of my uncles were too. They drink every day. They drink a lot. And they have health issues with it now. But I never seen them to act out of character. I never seen them to act crazy. Like I'm not known anyone to be abusive. Like they were drinking. Like definitely it's a problem because they cirrhosis of the liver, all these other health problems that they're causing to their body, even though they're able to function. So. I've seen it be negative in that way, but I can't speak to it. I mean, other than like now drugs on the other hand, like, people stealing, you let people in your house and like they stealing, they acting crazy in the streets doing some wild stuff. So like that's a much more real example of addiction that I've seen, and how toxic it is to a relationship.
Yeah, and I feel like, also because I never took drugs either, like, I don't know, like, maybe I'm thinking these people are drunk, but they were on drugs as well. But I feel like it's definitely something that will hinder a relationship because it's kind of like you end up dating a child, right? and I think in season 1 I mentioned about peeing in the bed. Like, I've actually seen someone urinate a man, you know what I'm saying? So these things, to me, that's when you get to the level of kind of like being addicted, because it's kind of like you're out with someone and they may physically look like a man, but then they're acting like childlike. They're, you know, you don't even have that manly posture anymore. You're very soft and very, you know, flimsy. You can just push them over with one finger. So, like, those type of things is kind of like what I'm speaking about, like when I say addiction and things that, for me, I can't deal with that anymore. You know what I mean?
Yeah, so, I mean, so then I think a more apt question would probably be about at what stage are they exhibiting these behaviors and these habits? Like, is it like early on? Like, is it early in the game? Like, you start to say like, oh, this is a non-starter for me. Like, I can't move forward with this. This ain't happening, because of the fact that they're showing their hands so early in the situation, or is it something that where like it just comes out, and over time you say, oh man, like that was a sign, but by this time you already fell in love. And then what do you do? Like, are you like, do you cut them off, or do you work with them?
And actually, like, that actually leads me to my next question. So basically, do you feel like, because some of these habits are things that people have been dealing with long before they met you, and so do you feel like it's a good excuse, like, if this, oh, you know, work with me, or do you feel like you can actually help someone get over addictions, or do you think that these people should seek professional help? And then this is the part 2 of the question: how long should you wait on someone? And the different addictions, I'm going to just give you like some sample ones, and we're going to break them down in a little bit. But like people who are addicted to porn, to gambling, to lying, to stealing, to not even being clean, like you're not showering, people who are addicted to food, like those kind of things. So do you think that at that point when you guys are in a relationship and it's affecting you, that you guys, like, they should receive professional help, or do you feel like you yourself should be able to help them with it?
See, like that's a complicated question, because like, again, like, when do you notice this? When do you pick it up? Is it early in the game? Like, do you pick it up like if it's when we're courting and we're still dating and like we're not necessarily committing to each other, we're just trying to see where this goes? You're like, all right, look, if it's early, you're like, I can't, you know, like, this ain't what I want for my life. But if you're a little invested and you spend some time with each other, and you're like, okay, look, like this is looking like we're building towards something, we're working towards something, and now these symptoms are coming in. Like, now at that point, you need to make a decision. Either you all in or you not. And also too, like, I never profess to be anything that I'm not. So like, I'm not a therapist, I'm not a counselor. I don't got all the answers. I can give you my advice, but I'm also going to give you with a disclaimer, like, look, you know, but what do I know? So you need to speak to a professional. So.
So that's the black way of saying, like, I'm not trying to ruin your life. At the end, right? What do I know?
No, it's not even that. It's just that it's like, you know, you need to get like real professional help. Like, I could be here to support you, but I can't. Like, I'm not. And you know, and you may not. I don't know. Like, you may not feel like you're addicted. Like, you may not. Or you may feel like this is something you can get over by yourself. Like, it's not for me to make that call for the other person, because at the same time, although we're living our lives together, like, it's still your life. And I think that's what makes a healthy relationship, understanding that, like, I live my life, you live your life, and then together we have a whole life. So if addiction is something that you're battling, you need to decide the best way that it works for you. You can bring me in to help make that decision for you, and, like, you know, go through the pros and cons of which way you should go, but ultimately it's still your decision. And if I'm gonna stay with you, I need to, so if I'm in support of that, or, you know, if I'm not.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And I would say, I mean, obviously, if it's something that's early on, like week 1 or 2, you definitely should have the common sense to kind of just back away and maybe just like be friends and things like that, because I wouldn't recommend anyone going into a situation head on and you know this person is dealing with things, because in that moment they may need a friend and they may need support. Oftentimes, though, I feel like people who are dealing with any type of addiction, you know it, right? You know that even if you don't consider it to be an addiction, you know you're dealing with something. And so they try to hide that part of their life. So early on, you may not see it, you may not know it, you may not have any idea until you start spending, days or vacations with them. Like, because people can do that. Even people who are pathological liars. Like I'm saying, like, no, deep. I mean, I'm just giving. No, but of course it is deep because I feel like people can hide stuff and then it comes out and you're like, whoa, I didn't know it was this serious. You get what I'm saying?
No, yeah, I hear you. So, like, again, like, you gotta have the discernment to understand, like, where your priorities are and what it is that you want for yourself. And if these behaviors are not in line with your long-term plan, like, I mean, you might need to, make that call and say, look, big homie, like, it was fun while it lasted, but I think it's time for us to kind of go our separate ways. And or if you're invested, you say, look, big homie, like, this was fun. However, before moving forward, these are some issues that we need to rectify. But it's up to you to make that decision. If it's up, like, do you just split ways, or do you think that the relationship is worth working on and salvaging? But also be realistic in the time frame, because, like, what's forever? Like, do you want to be helping this person battle addiction? Like, you only been talking to them for a year and a half, 18 months. Do you want to be helping this person battle their addictions for the next 30 years? Like, because you don't know what the future holds. And, like, you got to be like, are you committing to that? Like, committing to helping them do that? Are you committing to the next 30 years? Or are you committing like, look. And at the same time, it's like, you got to think about, with the pros and cons, because I know of, and I see stories, and I watch TV, I hear stories all the time. It's like, oh man, I've been battling addiction for 30 years, and my wife has been beside me the whole time, and she's been holding me down, and, like, that might work for them. You just need that, and I don't know. I don't know if I've met that person. I haven't had to deal with addiction in that capacity where it was that serious, but I don't know if I've met that person in my life where I'm really like, we 18 months in, 2 years in, 3 years in, and I'm like, look, I'm gonna help you get through this addiction, and then now we 70 and, like, we still, it's we're working at it every day. It could, but you might make me better. So, like, I don't know.
Yeah, and I mean, like, of course, like, I definitely feel like I lost my train of thought real quick, but okay, I feel like sometimes when you stay with the person, you're enabling them, and so they don't stop what they're doing, and so that's why he's been dealing with it for 30 years.
I disagree with that.
30 years? What are you dealing with?
No, if you stay with the person, that doesn't mean you're enabling them, because the thing is, if you don't stay with them, that, like, they could be addicted and feed their addiction whether they're with you or they're not with you. Like, if you're enabling them, I would say, like, you're making excuses for them. But if you're with them and you're helping them work towards it and you're holding them accountable, like, I'm clean, like,
for 30 years, you can hold somebody accountable? Nah, bro. Nah.
See, game. Like, look, listen. If you had an addiction, and me and you was together, and I've been holding you accountable for the past 30 years, but you've been clean while you was with me. But you were clean the entire time. That, like, it was something that we had to work towards every day, and we have to think about it. And, like, you come to me and you say, hey, Cam, like, I'm feeling weak, and I'm feeling weak in this moment, and I need you to be my strength. And I come up and I be your strength in that capacity. Then, like, I'm able to keep you clean. But then if you leave me, like, if we end up splitting up for whatever reason, that may be the catalyst to drive you back to whatever addiction that you have that was impacting you negatively. You dig? So.
But that's not your job. Like, I'm not staying with you so I can make you not go back to your addiction. But Cameron, thank you, honey.
It's not your job.
Yes, but so but no, I definitely like this conversation. I feel like,
I just want to say, I said, it's not your job, but if you choose to be with that person, again, like, it comes down to the decision that you're making. If you decide to be with that person and you're deciding to take on that life, then you're choosing to help them and help them get through that. If that's not what you want, then don't choose to be with that person, period.
Yes. No, that's true. And that's a great segue to actually end the conversation, because it's something we could talk about for a long time. I definitely know this is like a deep topic. Like, we're just scratching the surface, but I definitely thank you for your input and your insight. Like, this is really, something to think about. And I'm sure people go through this every day, and it's definitely not easy. So before we head out, I mean, you already kind of gave your last remarks, so just let them know what your Instagram page is if they want to talk to you, they can they can hit you up. Long-winded Cameron. Okay, so what is it?
Okay, you can follow me at Fontaine Concierge on Instagram, also at Matches Malone 87.
All righty. Well, thank you so much for your input. I mean, we're gonna have to talk about this offline. And then to my listeners, thank you so much for tuning in to our Bad Habits and Addictions episode. And until next time, have a good one.
Adios.